everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. So I started to collect a different kind of set during the pandemic, a set that I'd always kind of heard about but never actually seen in person. And so the opportunity arose where I started to pick up certain cards in the set, and the set actually is the 1957 Topps um, hit stars. And there's one card in particular that I'm going to talk about today. However, before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about who was in this set. Uh, it actually is a set that signifies the very best of early rock and roll. And so some of the people in it are really kind of pioneers of rock and roll. And others are actually TV stars as well. So you have kind of a combination of the two, which I think is really interesting. In any event, you have Kirk Douglas in it. He was 105 when he passed away, so good on him. You have James Dean, which is a really kind of a tribute card because he died in 1955 in a car accident. And so I think you have two cards in the set with James Dean on them. I'm not sure if you actually have any cards of James Dean while he was an actor. You also have Nat King Cole, who is really just probably one of my favorite singers of the 1950s and early 60s. And then you have Tony Curtis as well, and Elvis Presley. Um, and obviously, Elvis Presley is probably the biggest name, I think, in this. Um, However, you also have the Chordettes as well, and they're known for Mr. Sandman, which is a song that I know about or first heard about in Back to the Future. And that song was actually, I think, first done by Joe Stafford when she was a member of the Pied Pipers back in the mid 40s to early 50s. And then she had a long and distinguished solo career. So the Chordettes also did the song Lollipop, which was actually the song I first heard from the movie Stand By Me. And so you also have Burt Lancaster. And Burt Lancaster is, he's another really fascinating or interesting actor. And I first knew of Burt Lancaster from the movie Field of Dreams. And then you have Liz Taylor, Paul Anka, Johnny Mathis, a Little Richard. And I don't know how many cards that Little Richard has, but he's absolutely big time in the early rock and roll era. And you also have Steve Allen as well. And Steve Allen is kind of like the Johnny Carson of like the 50s, I guess. But he's also a huge name, a pioneering name, if you will, in early TV. Um, you also have Buddy Holly and the Crickets. So Buddy Holly and the Crickets, actually, I think they first formed in 1956. I could be wrong, but this probably would be considered a rookie card, if you will, of them, and it is a key to the set. Actually, it's quite expensive. It can get up there, but um, you also have Bob Hope, and Bob Hope has a lot of cards out there, so he is pretty plentiful. But it is really interesting that he's in this set. You have Bobby Darin as well, and I know there's a movie that was made about him and his life, and for the life of me, I can't remember exactly what it is. I I never actually saw the movie, but I'm very familiar with Bobby Darin. And then this would be like probably his heyday. And then you have Gene Kelly, Sammy Davis Jr. as well. Um, and you have the McGuire sisters and Jerry Lewis, Tony Bennett. And Tony Bennett just retired. Unfortunately, he is battling Alzheimer's or dementia, which is really too bad. But I might devote a video just solely to Tony Bennett, um, just because I think he's a really interesting guy. And so you also have Fats Domino as well. And I guess you could consider this another rookie card, if you will, of Fast Domino. I couldn't find anything prior to this with him. And then you have the Four Aces, and they're actually kind of known for a song called "Sincerely," and that's a song I first heard in a 1990 movie called Book of Love, which is about a kid growing up in the 1950s and he wants to become a writer. And that's actually a really funny movie. And then you have the Drifters, and so um, the Drifters actually kind of play a role in what I'm going to talk to you about today in the um, in this right here. So this card is the Platters, and so the Platters is actually a group that I really enjoy. They were formed in 1953 when let me see if I got my notes here. The lead singer is a guy named Tony Williams, and uh, there was a songwriter named Buck Ram who was looking for a front man for an R&B group, and he found Tony Williams working as a parking lot attendant, and then they found the other members, but the other members are not the people on this card actually. Um, they were Joe Jefferson, Alex Hodge, and Cornell Gunter. And Cornell Gunter is actually known because he founded the Coasters in 1955. I think that group was also reformed as well. So they're also in this as well, and I do have a card of them, and I think at some point I will be talking about the Coasters. They're not my favorite group. They're not, but they do have a lot of history behind them. Um, and I think the Coasters were actually the first rock and roll group to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1990. Um, and oh, I'm sorry, 1987. It was the Platters that was inducted in 1990, and for good reason. The Platters are really kind of known for several major hits back in the 1950s. In fact, they're the most successful rock band of the decade, and they even if you don't know the name of the band or who's in it, you definitely have heard some of the songs, and that's because uh, the songs are actually featured in about 70 or more movies. So anyway, uh, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes is probably their biggest hit, but they have like four, um, I guess, four number one hits and 16 gold records. So The Great Pretender, My Prayer, and Harbor Lights are the other number one hits. And then they also have The Magic Touch, You'll Never Know, Goodnight, Sweetheart, Goodnight, and Twilight Time. So there's actually nothing on the card itself to identify who the other band members are, and in fact, on the back, nothing on the back either. So I'm gonna actually show you who these people are right now. So going from left to right, you have Paul Roby, Tony Williams, the lead vocalist. Then you have David Lynch, Herb Reed, and Zola Taylor. So before I continue with the band members themselves, I want to tell you a little bit about the set and what to look for when collecting these cards. There's a few things in particular with this set and with the 1957 Topps baseball and basketball set, and they all kind of mirror each other. The first thing is that these cards are really not found very well centered. Um, in the basketball set in particular, you're going to see that there's a disparity in that the tops top to the bottom centering is really off. And a lot of those cards, you're going to see a lot of tops that are sheared off. I don't really see that in this set, but what I do see is a lot of centering issues. Um, and another thing I see is the printing issues as well. So, in particular, there's something that we call snow. And what snow is it kind of looks like dandruff for your cards. And a lot of collectors and dealers will say that it was caused by stacking of the sheets. And probably depending on when those sheets were lifted, the tackiness um, is why you get uh, this snow. And I'm not sure if you can actually see it here. Maybe a little bit. It's usually on the darker areas of the card. And there's one set in particular that is notorious for it as well, and that's the 1951 Bowman Jets, Rockets, and Spacemen. And the thing is, um, when you lay down a sheet that's not yet dry, um, a lot of times you're going to see the ink on the back of the card, like the 1933 Gaudi set, which is notorious for that. Um, and I think it may be caused by too much ink. In fact, we don't really see that on these cards. We don't see really any ink on the backs of these cards, so I'm not entirely sure if the ink is all to blame for it. The other thing too is the stock of the card itself is rather weak. It's a soft stock, and you can kind of tell that because these cards are also fairly easy to damage, um, and they do have a lot of print streaks as well, which I think that may be caused by too much ink. But you are definitely going to see a lot of hairline creases on these cards, and creasing is a huge problem as the same with the centering issues as well. So now getting back to the band members themselves. So outside of Tony Williams, the lead singer, I think Herb Reed is really very instrumental in the history of the band going forward. And don't get me wrong, Tony Williams is the reason why you have 90 million records sold and 4 number 1 hits and 16 gold records. However, he left the band in 1960, and Reed by 1969 was the last member of the original Platters. Now, at that time, uh, the Platters had they had been incorporated as Five Platters Inc. And this is where the really interesting stuff happens because what it meant was that the original Platters were not getting royalties that they deserved for their music, and all the original titles were held by this one company, and so uh, Herb Reed started to notice that other bands were calling themselves the Platters, or other people who were not associated with the original band were going and touring as the original Platters and receiving royalties from their music. And so Reed decided to take these other bands and people to court, and it's really kind of interesting because this is where you have a 40-year litigation, and I think that's got to be some kind of record in the Guinness Book, and so I've never actually heard of anything quite like it before. And so in 2012, a judge sided with Herb Reed that he had exclusive rights to the band's name and their their music as well. And I think he had actually passed away in about February or so. Uh, the case was resolved in February of 2012, and Herb Reed had passed away in 2012 as well. So the judge actually gave a an escape clause, which said that other bands can call themselves the Platters as long as they use the word tribute in them, so there's no confusion. And that's also that escape clause is also just in case there's any further litigation, which I don't think there will be in the future. However, her breed is not the only one in the band to go to court. And so in 1962, Zola Taylor had a really kind of, I think, an unusual case. Um, so she was the wife of Frankie Lyman of the Teenagers, who's also in this set. And she had actually dropped out of the Platters in 1962 and was replaced by Barbara Randolph. Now, she doesn't actually kind of appear in the story until about 1984 when the song that Frankie did was called, well, it is called um, Why Do Fools Fall in Love? And I think that song actually came out in 1957. Uh, and I may actually get into Frankie Lyman and his career in another episode. However, in 1984, she went to court to try to get or obtain copyright on the song "Why Do Fools Fall in Love," but there were other women who also came forward saying, "Hey, I'm Frankie Lyman's wife," and another girl said, "No, I'm his wife." And so you had three people: Elmira Lyman, Zola Taylor, which I believe was actually Frankie Lyman's ex-wife by that point, um, but I'm not quite sure because Frankie Lyman actually he died in 1969 of a drug overdose, and he was 25 years old. And so the thing is, another lady named uh, Elizabeth Waters came forward too to say that she was Frankie Lyman's wife, and that they had gotten married in Mexico in 1965, but she couldn't produce a marriage certificate. So you have these three ladies who were all claiming to be the wife of Frankie Lyman, and he never divorced any of them. So that was kind of a messy thing, obviously. And in 1998, there was a film called "Why Do Fools Fall in Love," and Zola Taylor is portrayed by Halle Berry. Now, I didn't actually see this movie because I thought it was a romance movie, and I'm not into romance movies at all. Sorry, ladies out there. Anyway, um, so I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna have to watch that movie now, knowing that it's not about any kind of romance or anything like that, and more into the music. Now I'm kind of really curious about it. Um, and so I wanted to kind of tell you a little bit more about the Platters and the band itself and the 1957 Tops hit stars. I'm definitely going to be talking more about this set in the future and some of the individuals in it because I really think it's very fascinating to me. Um, and if you like music from the 1970s and 1980s, I think you're gonna like the Professor of Rock on YouTube. Adam Reeder is really fantastic. He gives a lot of great interviews of these bands from the 70s and 80s and a time in music that I really enjoy. So go over to his page and give him a like and subscribe as well. And if you like what you hear here, give a like and subscribe as well. And until the next time, guys, I really appreciate you stopping by and take care. All right, bye.